looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
Wind was pretty strong today. Yeah.
We lost the rest of our people. I haven't seen her in a while.
Hi. Pardon me.
What?
We're bringing eyewitnesses to it. We're rallying to actually have the government stop watching us.
How galvanizing have been the Snowden disclosures for
I think extraordinarily significant.
Yeah.
I mean, for the first time in 12 plus years, we're actually having the debate and the discussion, and it's sustained. It's not just overnight
ready to
sensation,
rally.
a few 15-second sound bites.
you were at NSA.
A beautiful day to live in a democracy.
And you disclosed aspects of NSA surveillance to the press.
Actually,
right
significant
now,
aspects of it, both
up
well
there
within
on
the
that
system
hill,
over
there
several
are
years,
people
including 2 9/11
slowly
congressional
moving
investigations,
toward the
as well as
windows
other senior
and
government
wondering
officials and
what's
authorities.
going on out here.
But it was all censored and suppressed.
Findings are
And
held.
I
Now, I
did
saw
ultimately
some
make
people
a
in the
fateful
rally
decision
who
to
were
go
supposed to be
to the press
chanting, and there's a lot
with
of
what I knew,
mumbling
including the secret
and
surveillance programs.
hiding
In fact, we never had to go to
signs.
the dark side.
I need you to be
So
really loud.
What
Those people
what
all the
prompted
way
you to
up
do
there
that? Why
can
did
hear
you
us.
feel the
And
need
what I want you to
come
tell
forward?
them
I had
is a very
taken an oath
simple
to sworn to defend the
message.
Constitution.
Stop watching
And that meant
us.
obeying
Can
the
we
law
do
of the
that?
land. And the NSA was an
let's go.
abject violation of the
Stop.
Fourth Amendment on a vast scale. Totally unnecessary. And they were doing so in secret. Remember, I was there at the foundations of all of the evidence that Snowden has disclosed regarding the secret surveillance programs. Before there was any enabling act legislation other than the Patriot Act, which was passed in the dark of night 12 years ago to this very day. The reason why this rally is actually assembling here in D.C.
Wait, I'm sorry. Why is the rally?
Well, fundamentally, it's the 12-year anniversary of the passage of the Patriot Act.
Could this rally and this debate have taken place if it had not been for the disclosures of Edward Snowden?
I don't think so. Although I think it's in some ways it's sort of the straw. I mean, I think because Edward Snowden is standing on my shoulders and others, and he he's learned all the lessons that we had gone through. And he said the only way we're actually going to be able to have any hope for having a real discussion debate is to bring out documented evidence.
You met with him recently in Moscow. What's his mood? What's his attitude?
I think given the circumstances in which he finds himself, which most of them might be rather surreal under usual conditions, remarkably centered. Yeah, he's centered, focused, very engaged, clearly following everything that's been going on. And I think I think his fear was that even with his own disclosures, having disclosed himself as a whistleblower, that it still wouldn't matter. So it is mattering, and people are picking up on it, and they're getting that this is really serious.
Foundation.
To show how far the U.S. government has gone to create this vast surveillance state.
And he's following what's the debate that's
All the debate, and he's extremely focused right now
Media
on
Alliance.
reform. He knows
Media Mobilizing Project.
Have hope of preserving
Mozilla.
the experiment it was launched
Public
over 220 years
knowledge.
ago. They want to
And
experiment the idea of how
restore
we
the
govern
fourth.
ourselves.
A lot of people think he's a traitor.
All right, a couple quick other shout-outs. Got to give it up for David Solnit, who made all the amazing.
I actually say he's a patriot in the highest sense of the world. He's actually
Let's
saving
give
the
it up
country
for
from
that
itself, from its own government who wants to take it away.
Let's give it up
I
for
mean, that's
the
part of the
Rhythm
paradox here,
Workers
the
Union.
pernicious paradox.
Who's behind
The
that?
government actually
Awesome.
considers what he
DJ
did,
Ren, back when
disclosing
we were over
government
there
wrongdoing
with
and
the tunes,
illegality
DJ Ren.
as a threat. But that goes
All right,
also to the
and
First
a couple
Amendment.
other big thanks.
So the First
Sina
Amendment is fundamental.
Conifar, who
We're
built
here
the
because
Stop
of the First
Watching Us
Amendment. That's a
website,
fundamental
did all of
right.
our technical support.
Right, but
How about a
you
big
made the
round of
decision
applause
on
for
your
the
own
IT
to
guys?
disclose NSA secrets. Snowden made a decision on his own to disclose
And I gotta
NSA
thank
secrets.
ThoughtWorks
There are
was
people in the
the
intelligence
ones who
community who
stepped up
say
first
these
to
have
help fund
damaged
this
U.S.
rally and
national
make it
security.
possible.
So they're
And thousands
conflating
of others
national
have
security
followed suit,
with
helping
public
us raise
interest.
more than
That's what
$40,000
happens.
to make today
And
happen.
so the government
thank you.
it's very convenient for them to say it's national
All right,
security,
just a few more.
right? and have it
Thank you to
quote
everybody who
unquote
came on a bus
protected under the ambit,
this
when in
morning.
fact
Did
they're
you get here?
violating the very
Yes,
protections
bus
they're supposed to
people. All
preserve
right.
for their own
Thank you to
citizens.
everybody who loved.
There are people who say, who are
If it
you
wasn't for them, we
and
wouldn't
who's
know
Edward
what's
Snowden
being
to
done
make
in our
decisions
name?
about what should be
And we've
disclosed
got to
the
thank
public?
the
Yeah.
journalists.
What privilege they have to decide in the deepest of secrecy to violate our
We got to
rights and
thank the
freedoms.
journalists who put
It
this
works
story out
the other
there.
way. That's the
who
real
stayed on
question.
this story
Why does the
even when
government
their families
need?
were being
It's a zero-sum game for them, and it's unnecessary.
And we've got
That's
to
not a
thank
form of
our
government. It's an alien
allies
form of
around
government. I
the
took an oath
globe.
4
It is not
times
just
in my
innocent
government career.
Americans
There was
who
a
are
time
being
in
swept up
Edward
in
Snowden's
this
career he also
dragnet.
took an oath.
We need to stand up
We're
for
both
the rest
oath
of the
keepers.
world
We're not
too.
oath breakers. It's the government that's breaking the oath.
Wait,
To the
you took-
American public.
But mostly I want to
The
thank you. I want
contract
to
that they
thank you
have
for
with the
being
government,
here,
and they're
for
doing this
being
without our
counted,
consent.
for telling your
And so
leaders that you
he
won't
saw
let
what had happened to me
fear
and others, and
take
he's
away
brought out the
your
evidence to
freedom.
show how far the government has gone.
But
There are
both
people out
you
there,
and
maybe
he
they're
took
even around
oaths
here, and they
not
want you
to
to believe that a
disclose
small
national
group can't
security
make a
They weren't
secrets.
oaths. They were not
It's
oaths.
the only thing it has, but
They were
look
actually
around you, it's not such a small
non-disclosure
group.
agreements. But those
And there are
non-disclosure
millions
agreements
more
did not mean that
people
we
who are
were to
standing with us.
hide government illegality and
The majority
wrongdoing.
of the American
And
public is on our
that
side,
non-disclosure
and there are
agreement
more
is not an
people
oath.
waking up
The only
every
oath
day.
I took
This
was
is
to
an
the
effort
Constitution,
that's
not to the
uniting
President,
strange
not to
bedfellows
NSA,
from across
not to
the
any
political
individual,
spectrum. I'm
and
proud
certainly not to
stand here with
violate the
Democrats,
Constitution.
with Republicans,
Or the
with
sovereignty of who we are as
with
people.
libertarians,
When the White House
because
says
this
these
is not
disclosures
this
are
is not about
damaging
right
U.S.
and
national
left.
security
This
and
is
making this
about
country
right
less
and
safe,
wrong.
you say what?
Well, that's their justification to go after us,
Thank
right?
you
Because we're
for
holding up the mirror to
showing
the
up.
government.
We need to keep showing
I mean,
up.
when
not
the
just here in
government
Washington,
is
but in
allowed to
communities
get
across
away
the
with this,
country.
this is the
We need to hold
catch-22
our
premise of
leaders
Joseph Heller.
accountable and
Who's going to
stay
stop
in
us
their
now? They have the
faces when we
power.
go
This
back
power
to
is
our local
extraordinary.
communities.
We
We
went
need to
through a
keep
period in our
showing
own
up
history,
until we have a
a period of history
government
which
that
I
doesn't
grew up as a
just
very young
spy
adult.
on the
That was in
people, that
1970.
actually
We're
answers
returning to
to
the
them.
era of Nixon, but on a far, far larger
All right,
scale.
before I
How
get
do you
out of
know
here,
they're wrong
way
when
over
they say
time,
this is
I
damaging
give you
national
one more
security?
chance.
Because of
So
the
if you're on
evidence.
this
The
side,
evidence
if
that
you're on
I
this side of the
provided
mic,
shortly
I want
after
you to
9/11,
say,
when I was
"Stop
confronted with the
spying."
reality
And if
that
you're
the
over
U.S.
here,
government at the
I
highest
want
level
you
was
to
subverting the
say,
Constitution,
"Stop
willfully
lying."
and deliberately.
Got it?
And they knew they were
All
doing
right.
it. And they had to
Stop
hide it.
lying.
And they justified it under
Stop
9/11. It was a zero-sum game right from the very beginning.
And they prosecuted you.
They did. Yeah. They called me an enemy of the state. They charged me with espionage. You know what that means in America? They're labeling me a Benedict Arnold. Right? You were one of us. Now you're one of them.
And they're saying the same thing about Snowden.
Yeah, well, they're even saying that whistleblowers are even worse than regular spies because in the public interest, it gets disclosed on a far larger scale. They're even saying that if you're a regular spy, you would have actually had more protection because at least the set of people that had access to it was very, very small. Here, millions and millions of people get to see it. It's such a false choice.
One of the developments this week is the disclosures about international spying by the NSA. Should that be a surprise to anybody?
There's no surprise to me. I've been hoping and waiting for the other shoe to drop, knowing what I knew from the inside. You have to remember, shortly after 9/11, because so many of the hijackers had actually been in Germany, lived in Germany, had transited through Germany, NSA and the U.S. government decided that Germany was target number one in Europe. So, but here, this is an incredible breach of international diplomacy. I mean, this is personal for Chancellor Merkel. I mean, this is her personal cell phone. Why is that necessary? One of your key allies in the fight against the real threats, and there are real threats to the international order and stability, why would you have to spy on her personal cell phone?
Are there, Snowden made clear to you that there are a lot more disclosures to come.
A lot of people have tightly held beliefs.
Even with the extraordinary disclosures today, I'm just aware from what I knew from the inside. And I think it's pretty clear that he's got other evidence that's been given to reports and journals that will eventually come out over time.
Did he make that clear to you? Did he say there's a lot more to come? What did he say?
Well, I just smiled. I mean, that's part of the conversation. Was there's more? Yeah, there's a lot more.
It was Rockwell's song.
Well, look, just think of the Dash 80 order for Verizon. What about the AT&T's order? What about the Sprint's order? What about the other internet service providers? What about those orders? Okay? Remember, that's the other thing that's happening. You can't have secret courts and secret keys and secret law and executive fiat determining what is in the quote-unquote interest of the public, but doing so in the deepest of secrecy and calling it national security and hiding behind that suffocating blanket. Secrecy is now the asset that's eroding away our fundamental liberties of freedom. Benjamin Franklin was right. We're losing both, and it's unnecessary. It is totally unnecessary. We never had to go there.
Gabriel, how old are you?
The best of American engineering innovation was actually developed, was ready to go even before 9/11.
No.
So he made clear to you there are a lot more disclosures to come.
All right. Now, Gabriel,
what did he say?
Well, he didn't say what the disclosures are, but I believe there's going to be many more. And we'll find those out once they're made available to the public through various outlets.
Okay.
Mr. Frank, what will be the ultimate goal of
You're so frank, we're going to work it out.
this kind of surveillance?
The ultimate goal is everybody is suspicious. We all become subjects to the state. We lose our citizen rights. That's not the government I took an oath to support and defend. This goes back to the Magna Carta. I mean, this somehow national security is the new state religion, and you don't question it, you don't dissent. If not, we excommunicate you. I mean, we're going backwards. We're supposed to, we the people, is how our Constitution, the preamble begins. We the people in order to form a perfect union. What we're doing is we're actually dissembling our own country. We're actually forming a less perfect union. That's going backwards. And it's somehow, if you hide out in secrecy and you blanket it in the name of national security, that gives you the right to violate liberties and rights of people when it's totally unnecessary. You don't have to create a surveillance state to remain free. I mean, that's a zero-sum game. You want perfect security, then you have to take away all liberties and rights. That's a natural progression here. And history's not kind. Just look at Nazi Germany. Just look at the Stasi in East Germany. This is why the Angela Merkel affair, in terms of directly surveilling and monitoring her own cell phone, is so extraordinarily personal. The language she used with Obama has been released publicly. It's amazingly strong language. They're very, very sensitive to their own history.
Mr. Snowden is in the same spot that you've been years back. You've been in touch with him. What he said?
Well, I was in touch with him in Moscow. I mean, we had dinner and an extended conversation. Yeah, remember, he's been rendered stateless by virtue of U.S. actions to revoke his clearance. I was made stateless in the U.S. during my criminal proceedings, pre-trial. Right? He had to escape the U.S. to have any hope of preserving his freedom. Yeah. So, and it's ironic, he never intended on remaining or going to Russia. He was in transit. You know, if he had been a real spy or compromised our security, was operating under the control of others, why would they have left him in the transit zone all those many weeks? He was stateless, so he applied for asylum. How ironic in terms of history. History was not lost on me, by the way, when I walked across Red Square in Moscow a couple weeks ago.
Mr. Drake, is this worse than Watergate?
Far worse than Watergate. And I think the worst is still to come, because part of what the government is doing is covering up. They have to. I mean, this is penetrating all aspects of our society. We already have the equivalent of digital turnkey tyranny. We just don't really know it. It's kind of the intangible, because so much of society now depends on electronic transactions on a very large scale.
You just compared it to the Stasi or to Nazi Germany. I'm German, so could you repeat again? What reminds you so much?
Well, I became, during the latter years of the Cold War, I flew reconnaissance